This is Oft Off Topic, a show where two men with the attention spans of a squirrel try and fail to stay on topic with today's subject. Where will their oral meanderings take us? Well, stick around and listen, because today's Oft Off Topic is...
Pete Carrol, legend of the football coaching scene, coach at USC and coach of my Seattle Seahawks right up until about a month or two ago. Nate, what do you know about Pete Carrol?
He's dead.
Is he?
I don't know.
Okay. I was like, wow,
nothing.
News came this morning. You're like, right before this, I'm going to Google
him.
something. Okay.
I know
Well,
nothing about him.
You're going to learn a whole lot about him then.
I had a 50-50 shot of that being correct or not. So
This is very, very true. And honestly, I haven't Googled his name today, so you could still be right. We will consider this Schrodinger's Carroll. We will not know if he's alive or not until we Google it.
We will refuse to look it up.
Yep, we will refuse to look it up. Thus, we don't know. So we can talk about him in the past tense if we want to. Make really weird people out. Oh, yeah.
So
and
in the future, it's accurate.
Yeah. And yes, Pete Carrol is a football, also American football. I know we have some international listeners. A couple people have picked us up over the pond and the such. So, and I'm also aware not everybody really likes football. So we're going to be talking more about Pete Carrol, the person, and his philosophies in his life than we are about the actual sport of football. Just because, football, it's one of those things. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, well, it's kind of a really tough hog to stick.
It's boring.
I couldn't think of a better term than that. Honestly, it kind of is. If I recall, there's a study, I think the actual time in play when the ball is actually being thrown or run around, I think it's 7 minutes, maybe, if that.
I will admit the last Super Bowl was actually pretty interesting in the end, just because it was so tight.
Yeah,
but
it was one of the better Super Bowls I'd seen.
That was more I don't know. It was interesting just because it was all the stakes involved. But your average football game it's
especially if you're watching two not good teams. Super Bowl's kind of skewed because, they got the big old hoopla and production, and it's the two, in theory, best teams in the NFL.
Right. As they should.
Yeah. It's not like back in the day when I had to watch the Seahawks when they were only won 2 games in an entire season. Man, that was painful. I wound up watching it as just like a form of self-flagellation. If you're going to be a Seahawks fan, you have to go through this. Yeah.
No, I don't want to. Too bad.
No, I don't want to. Yes, you must. You must sit here for 3 hours and watch your Seahawks flounder. All right, so much of my source for this is Pete's own book, Win Forever, Live, Work, and Play Like a Champion. Read that thing. It's not a bad book. You get some fun football stories, learn about Pete, what makes him tick, and you get to learn about his philosophy of always compete. Pete is a word that Pete loves because his name is in it. Aha. Clever writing right there, yeah. Hey, man, that's what 3 years of creative writing classes in college and 2 years of improv will get you that kind of humor.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Hey, gotta take them jokes. I go with the Fozzie Bear College of Comedy. You just throw everything at a wall and see what sticks. Maybe in the future they'll appreciate it more.
Fozzie Bear was the boss, man.
I liked him. He was good. All right. Pete Carrol was born September 15th, 1951 to Rita and Jim Carroll in the sourdough capital of the world of San Francisco. Pete, by his own accord, was a super competitive child and excelled at sports all the way through his middle school years. And the way he talks about how he is always a competitive child, it kind of makes me really hope that he was competitive from birth. He came shooting out that birth canal and he was like, all right, doc, I made a pretty good time there. Jam me back in there. I'm going to see if I can beat that time. You ready, mom? And she was just like, all right. That kind of competitiveness. Yep. Competitive newborn. I can be born faster and better than that time. Give me a few more practice runs.
All the other babies step aside.
Yeah, exactly. Doctor, pull out your stopwatch. Time me on this. And doctor's like, well, this is unorthodox, but okay. Yeah, and the doctor did it. Anyways, so Pete, very competitive child, and was actually a pretty good athlete for a little kid. But once he got to high school, things kind of changed because whereas everybody else went through puberty, Pete Carrol did not. In fact, he kind of got a blow to his ego because when he was a freshman, he went to a tryout for the football team. They're like, you're too scrawny. You got to go to a doctor and get a doctor's note as a liability thing. Because as a freshman, he was 5'4" and 110 pounds, and they were afraid he was going to get snapped in half.
As they should be.
Yeah. He said it was kind of a blow to the ego to go to the doctor and be like, yeah, I need a doctor's note because I'm so small. Actually, I guess his voice was higher than that. I need a doctor's note because I'm going to go play football.
Boy, howdy.
Boy, howdy. So he got his doctor's note, went to play football, and because he was, noticeably smaller than everybody, not quite as athletic and not quite as, testosterone filled, he basically struggled throughout, majority of his high school career. By the time he rolled around to a senior, he had finally puberbated. That's the technical term for going through puberty. But yeah, his slow start kind of meant, he didn't set any records at the school or anything like that. However, if you do go to his Wikipedia page, it states that in high school, he was a multi-sports star in football, basketball, and baseball, earning the school's Athlete of the Year's honors as a senior in 1969. Pete said he was an awful athlete in high school for the most part. So to get to the bottom of it, I actually clicked on those little references on Wikipedia to be like, hey, where did they get this story from? And all the stories kind of just led to Pete Carrol being inducted into his high school Hall of Fame. And in that article, they said that he lettered in 3 sports and even won an athletic award as a senior. And they kind of just took that and ran with it because they're like, ooh, lettering. That sounds like he did really good in high school. But that doesn't really mean that you did great in high school. It just means you played the majority of the games, I believe. And also, too, just because you win Athlete of the Year award doesn't necessarily mean you're the greatest athlete. It might just mean you're the most, motivational athlete.
Motivational.
Motivational.
His terrible technique motivated you to do better.
Kids, you're awful at the game, but you got moxie. We've got this mascot uniform here for you right here. Now hop in there and start dancing.
I said dance, boy.
Yeah, dance, boy. Dance for me. Dance for me and your local Catholic priest. We enjoy it. In fact, I'm doing like a Northeastern accent in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was thinking it's Carnival Barker.
Oh, yeah, Carnival Barker, yeah. I was kind of going for like a lot of history up on that hill. Yeah. Ground sour. Don't go burying your cat up there. Especially don't bury our child. That would be illegal in many ways. Anyway, so the coaches did notice that Pete was a very positive fellow, and he was good at getting all the other players hyped up, and he was good with the X's and O's of football. So one year, his football coach invited him to a summer camp and was like, hey, you want to be, basically our volunteer coach and coach these, middle school kids? And Pete said, okie dokie. And that was his first exposure to being a football coach. And he enjoyed it. And apparently he was pretty good at it.
I think so. I mean,
yeah, because he went on to be pretty good at it. But by his own account, one thing Pete says, because he was a mediocre athlete at best, but he always wanted to be the great athlete. So he put like all his effort into being an athlete. And apparently his grades did not do very well because of it. In fact, it sounds like he barely passed, only with the help of his very helpful and supportive parents. Probably getting him a tutor or something like that.
Something.
Yeah. Yeah, he says
paying his
teachers off.
Like, yeah.
Like,
hey, just let him pass. I mean, he's an idiot, but
we're rich. How about we buy your school a new charter bus and we call it the Pete Carrol Express? So yeah, Pete basically not great grades, not that great of an athlete, barely made it out of high school, but he did actually manage to find himself a spot at Marin College down the road. And when he was at Marin College, he decided to, put a little bit more effort into his studies, put a little more effort into his football playing abilities. And after 2 years, he improved everything enough that in 1971, he moves to the University of the Pacific in Stockton, California. Stockton, home to the only Dillards in Northern California.
University of the Pacific?
University of the Pacific, that's the name of it. Yeah, University of the Pacific in Stockton, home to the only Dillards in Northern California. That's literally bragged about on the Stockton's tourism site. The only location of the only Dillards in Northern California. Apparently Stockton, not a lot going on there.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah. We'll learn more about Stockton later, actually.
Mrs. Mabel's chickens got out again. That's the front page of the newspaper. Page 3 is little Timmy got run over by a car.
Yeah, right. But the first one is like, fireman gets
oh my God.
The fireman gets chickens out of tree. Hilarity ensues.
You say violate the chickens. I thought you said violate. I'm like, what?
It's the 13th Chicken Violator Fest. Come on down and violate your own chicken. Bring yours or use one of the community chickens.
Like that one movie I saw. Oh man, I'm blanking. Oh no, that it was that comedy one you downloaded for me a while back.
Flesh Gordon.
Flesh Gordon Part 2. That's what it was. That's exactly what it was. He had to have sex with those chickens to get the ship to go or something.
Yeah, well, the ship was powered by chickens having sex.
Right.
Actually, I think it was just powered by sex. But chickens were just the easiest ones to get to have sex, so they just had like a room full of chickens going at it around the clock. But yeah, then they got shot with a flaccid ray that made all the chickens limp. And then Flesh Gordon, except for Flesh Gordon, who was unlimpable, and he just went there. He's like, "All right, chickens, here we go." The next thing, he's just like in this pile of chickens, holding one under his arm with like feathers in his mouth.
What a dumb movie! I loved it.
Dumb or amazing.
A little bit of both. A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
We call that so bad it's good. So 2 years at the weirdly named University of the Pacific. And that's 2 years of improvement, Pete. And he got himself an All-Coast Player Award and an All-Conference Player Award his senior year there. This led to him getting a chance in 1973 to attend the training camp with the World Football League team of Honolulu, the Honolulu Hawaiians. Honolulu, where it's illegal to annoy any animal in a public park. I'm kind of okay with that law. Why would you need to annoy an animal in a public park?
I mean, I guess, but it's just weird.
It does sound like it's one of those things where, they kind of made that law so they could just haul anybody in for anything at time. Hey, I saw you look at that duck kind of funny. You seducing that duck? That sounds like you're annoying it.
Stop annoying that duck with your dick.
Yeah. I just want to show what a real one looks like, not one of those weird corkscrew things they have. However, this training camp was not actually held in Honolulu, but in Riverside, California. Riverside. The first navel oranges in California were planted there. It's the birthplace of California's citrus industry. These are all actual true facts, by the way.
Neat.
Yeah. So a couple of weeks into training camp, and Pete determines that in order to make the team, he needs to pull out all the stops and show off that, despite him not being the biggest dude in the world, he can hit just as hard as anybody, and he can just play with the big boys. So during practice, he goes, I'm going to just lay the biggest hit on this dude and impress the coaches. So he squares himself up, goes rushing at the guy, tries to land the biggest hit ever in the history, and completely misses and lands on his shoulder. And he says to this day, he can still hear and feel that crunch that happened in his shoulder. One of those sounds that you hear and you're like, wow, that's a life-altering sound if I've ever heard one.
Yep.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. Yep, man,
Yeah.
He had one of those. It's just that shoulder was done. That noise signaled he was done being a football player. Just full stop right there. Well, as the Bible famously says, God doesn't separate a shoulder without offering a coaching job. And in 1974, his old alma mater, the University of the Pacific Tigers, come calling and say, we've got a coaching opportunity for you, Pete. And Pete goes, oh boy. And back to Stockton he goes. Stockton, the asparagus capital of the world. San Joaquin Asparagus Festival is held there.
What? Asparagus festival?
Yeah. Stockton is the asparagus capital of the world.
I guess. Do we have to take
Hey,
your word for it?
I looked it up, and there was a few places that actually said that it is the asparagus capital of the world.
Oh, there's several people fighting over the title.
Oh no, just like places being like, this is where the most asparagus is grown in the world, kind of thing. Like, which is weird because every time I buy asparagus, it's from Mexico, so I don't know what they're talking about. But
I make special trips to Mexico just for that. I swear, just for that.
No. I pay people to bring it up with them when they're bringing up other stuff from below the border. Hey, when you're bringing that one shipment, grab a bunch of that asparagus your grandma grows. It's really good. So, anyways, Pete, he's coaching at the college and has a job there, and he decides, I'm going to take some college courses while I'm here doing my thing. And his whole plan was take some college courses, and that way he could be a teacher in high school and coach high school football. He seems like one of those guys who'd be good at that. He's a very friendly, affable fella. However, there'd be one class there at college that would change the way that he saw sports forever. Ancient dark art of sports psychology. Bum, bum, bum. Psychology. That's a scary word to some people.
Not psychology. Oh, dear God.
Not psychology. Oh, my God. They'll shrink your brain, Nate. Remember when they used to call it psychology shrinks?
Yeah, I wonder why.
I think it was
Shrink your
like
head or
they
whatever?
Yeah, I think it was they shrunk your brain and made you stupid or something like that. I don't know. Anyways, in this sports psychology class, he was introduced to one Abraham Maslow's. Maslow, born in 1908 and died in 1970, was known mainly for two things. One, he was known for Maslow's hammer, which is a phrase that is popularly put at, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. You probably heard that saying before, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. That came from his book, The Psychology of Science from 1966. So now you know where that saying comes from. However, the other thing he's mainly known for is he's one of the first psychologists to study happy people instead of depressed or crazy folk. Most psychologists want to know why crazy be crazy. Maslow wanted to know what made happy people happy. Seems kind of a good train of thought. Also, that way you don't have to work with crazy people. You got to work with happy, well-adjusted people. So maybe
Yeah,
he
that's
was,
true.
Yeah, maybe he was kind of playing 4D chess there with us. Be like, I don't want to work with crazy people. I know. I'll study the happy people. I'll study happy rich people on their yachts and during their garden parties. Yes. Yeah, that guy was onto something, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, like, oh yeah, you either go hang out in a psych ward all day, or you can just go, play tennis with some rich people and see how they're coping. So what mainly caught Pete's mind and eye was Maslow's books, Towards a Psychology of Being, 4.3 stars off of 39 reviews on Amazon, sold over 100,000 copies. But it's also a textbook for college courses, so there's that. And because it's a college book,
Well-
it's also expensive, $89 for the ebook.
I mean, yeah, that would do it. When it's like you have to buy it.
Yeah, exactly. And those things are such a scam too, because they make you buy a new book every year, even though all they do is just change like 2 pages in the whole thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, you know how it goes. Apparently, too, there's actually ways around it online now. Just like reprint the books up there, which is good because screw those.
Or they
books.
put them online. The entire thing's online. So
Also, for a comparison, Betty Crocker cookbook sold 75 million. So that, grand scheme of things, 100,000, not that much.
nah, not in the grand scheme of things.
Nope. But anyways, back to Dr. Maslow. Dr. Maslow, Dr. Maslow, Dr. Maslow, Dr. Maslow, Dr. Maslow. Be Dr. Maslow. Anyways, this book is all about the hierarchy of needs ideology. where people have categories of needs, and these needs do need to be arranged in like kind of like a staircase, ladder, or a pyramid, as in that picture I showed you earlier. And basically, at the bottom rung of this pyramid, you got the needs that must be filled. And once you fill those needs, you can move up to the next rung of the pyramid and fill up those ones and do. And you can only successfully move up the ladder as you fulfill each little step of the pyramid. And for example, oh no, I lost that picture. It starts with things like physical necessities like food, water, air, and the such. And once you fulfill those needs, you can move on to the other stuff, such as, security of the body, employment, love, friendship, this and that, having kids. And basically, they worded in the book like, essentially, someone starving to death won't be thinking about love, and someone who's drowning won't be thinking about how they're hungry. I mean, that kind of makes sense. That's pretty basic.
Fair enough.
101 there. Yeah, it's like, I'm on fire. Well, I'm not really worried about those bills now. Well, I mean, you might be, depending on how big the bills are.
Right. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
You're almost like, I don't want to die, but at the same time.
Yeah, you're like,
I don't wanna
stop
pay
and
the
drop
bill.
and roll. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe if I just stand here and die.
Well, that's a decision you want to make real fast because you don't want to get disfigured from fire. That's,
Right. You don't want to make it, 3/4 of the way through burning to death and change your mind. Yeah, no. So once you fill up most of your pyramid and you get to the very top tier of that pyramid and all your basic needs have been met, that's when you're finally free to go out and make your impact on the world. You're basically your gas tank is full and now you're ready to kick some butt. This is when you want to do your full self-improvement and go whole hog on making yourself the best person you could be. And basically, this is when people can reach their full potential and go Super Saiyan, if you will. So basically, think of this pyramid here as a power meter. And as it fills up, once it gets to the top, boom, you're a Super Saiyan. Or a superhuman, I guess. Or better yet, I guess that's more of when you can become a superhuman because, you're not worrying about stuff like food, money, family, self-esteem.
Right.
Yeah. I guess some actual examples like Maslow's pyramid, it's got the 5 levels to it. And, at the bottom is breathing, food, water, not being on fire. One up from that is safety, which is stuff like housing, employment, family safety. Again, not being on fire. Then above that, you got family. You got love and belonging, which is family, friendship, etc. Then above that, you got esteem.
You missed one.
Did I?
Yeah. Not being on fire.
Oh, yeah. Not being on fire. Yes. I love not being on fire.
If you're going to run with the joke, you're run with that motherfucker.
Right. I'm glad you called me out on that. Esteem above that is, self-confidence, respecting yourself, respecting others, respecting the fact you're not on fire currently. And the top of the pyramid, where that big eyeball is that watches us all, that part of the pyramid, that's the self-actualization place. That's where you get up and you stare out of that eyeball and see the world for what it really is. And
the lies the man gives you.
Yes, exactly. It's like putting on those glasses and They Live. Anyways, this ideology got Pete thinking, and this is actually kind of the quote straight from his book. What if my job as a coach isn't so much to force or coerce performance as it is to create situations where players develop the confidence to set their talents free and pursue their potential to its fullest extent? What if my job as coach is to really prove to these kids how good they really are and how good they could possibly become and that they are truly capable of high-level performance? Which basically breaks down to more or less, instead of like yelling at the players to run faster and stuff, he wants to kind of fill up their pyramid for them or help them fill up their pyramid as much as they can and use that as their ability to make them run faster or, because once their mind is clear of all these little problems and minor inconveniences, then they can fully focus on being a football player.
My God, Jim has not been doing so well. Quick, get him a hooker.
Ha! Pretty much, yes. that is pretty much it. Get that man an 8-ball and a hooker, and then he went out and he won the Heisman Trophy the next game or next year, I guess. So, oh yeah, and also right around this time when Pete's talking about going to college or taking the college course in sports psychology, he says that one of the benefits of schooling and coaching in Northern California was, quote unquote, the accessibility to innovative thinking that made me look at the world in a new way. He means weed, people. He's talking about pot.
Nice.
Yeah, he doesn't actually say that in the book, but Northern California full of ways to see things a new way. Well, remember,
nudge. I'm nudging you.
Yeah, nudge, wink, wink, nudge, wink, wink. You've been doing that for 5 minutes straight. Move on, please.
I am not going to give you a high five.
Yeah. So Pete's the coach at University of the Pacific, and their team coach is a very old school kind of coach. Sort of like, hey, the morale or the beatings will continue until morale improves. So when Pete runs up to him, he's like, I got this new thing we should try called sports psychology. You can kind of guess how that kind of went over with the old school coaches. An example he gave was at the beginning, Pete kind of wanted to initiate the players into the whole sports psychology thing. So he pulled a bunch of the players that he's in charge of, and he's like, all right, I want to ask you guys, what do you think we could do to make practices better? How do you think you can improve, so on and so forth? Just basically, workshopping ideas out of them. Well, the old school coach did not like that and just dragged him aside. He's like, that's how you make soft players. You never listen to players. You tell them what they do, blah, blah, blah. You tell them what's up and down and right and wrong.
And
Yeah.
left and right.
Yeah, exactly. Those old school kind of coaches, drill sergeants. But
Assholes,
obviously,
man.
yeah, exactly. Control freak assholes. Yep. But obviously, this method wasn't really working because the team was pretty historically average by all accounts, including their record at the time, which was 5 wins, 6 losses, and 1 tie. So Pete, his philosophy kind of got shot down right off the bat, but he was not deterred. He was like, well, I'm going to keep plugging away here, learning more about sports psychology and trying to crack this hard shell that is my coach. But that didn't go very long because he decided to take off. Eventually, he was like, well, I think I've kind of topped out here. Maybe I'm going to go travel the world, coach some other places, learn some things. And this begins what I like to think of as Pete Carroll's Samurai Jack phase. So for those of you who don't know, Samurai Jack, historical character from Japan, to fight off invaders, he had to travel all around the known world, learn from the greatest masters of war, and come back and use all those skills. Anyways, it's worth looking up.
Or Batman.
Or Batman. Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, Batman would work.
Yeah, but you know what? You went with Samurai Jack. We're going with Samurai Jack.
We're going with Samurai Jack. I took the path less traveled on that one.
Well, because mainly because at the end he fails. Samurai Jack does all this awesome stuff and attacks a coup and gets his he wins kind of, but then gets teleported, so he loses.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We'll see. Maybe there's some actual
He's like,
kind
yeah,
of
well, shut up. How about that?
Yeah, well, maybe we got some places going. Oh yeah, I forgot to bring up too. Eventually, I'm going to compare Pete Carroll to a Star Wars character, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised too.
I'm going to need you to get all the way off my back.
Yeah. Like, damn you, man. So Pete Carroll hits the road and goes around to various schools learning what he can. 1977, he finds himself working with legendary college coach and one of his coaching idols, Lou Holtz, at the University of Arkansas. Arkansas, where both Angel Soft and Quilter Northern toilet paper is produced. That's kind of neat.
I guess.
Hey, if you use toilet paper, it might come from Arkansas. That's made in America. That's kind of neat.
Yeah, that's me, I guess.
Yeah. Lou Holtz went on to be one of the winningest coaches of all time in college. I don't think he still is, but he was at one point. So Pete got to learn some fun stuff there. And the next 6 years would see him traveling like a Ronin, going from Arkansas, and then in 1978, he left to Iowa, where hogs outnumber people 4-1. 1979, he goes to Ohio State, home of the only non-rectangular flag in the USA. And then 1980 through 1982 saw Pete go over to North Carolina, the native home of the Venus flytrap. And finally, in 1983, he goes back to Pacific College in Stockton. Stockton, it used to be named Mudtown. Yeah. Where do you learn about Stockton? Yeah, Mudtown. It's because there was a bunch of sticky adobe mud all around the place that people used to build houses back then.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I don't know, the name Mudtown. Like, we might change
it sounds like something from Mad Max, doesn't it? We're Mudtown. What are you known for? Asparagus.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. During these travels, Pete would learn techniques from many of the great coaches. From Bud Grant, Pete learned the importance of observing human behavior. From Monty Kiffin, he learned the importance of having a consistent philosophy. Monty would say, if you change who you are year to year, you'll never get great at anything. And that actually makes sense. If you're constantly changing who you are, you won't have time to, learn who you are and get better at it. So, yeah, do one thing, do it well, I guess.
Right.
From Tim Galloway, he learned the importance of a player having a quiet mind, a clear and zen-like mind to achieve their best performance, which apparently is actually a scientific thing, which kind of goes with this needs pyramid being full. I guess the less stressed a player is, well, when a player gets stressed or under a lot of tension, I guess the body naturally tenses up muscles and you naturally lose some flexibility and mobility in your muscles and joint just due to stress. So if you're stressed, you can't really athleticize the best you can. If you're, loosey-goosey and all happy and stress-free, apparently you have better range of motion, better strength, better this and that, which I found kind of interesting, I guess. I mean, it makes sense, I guess. 1984, and Pete finally breaks into the big time, the National Football League, and joins the staff of the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo, where our bars don't close until 4 a.m. 1985, and he finds himself in another cold-as-hell city in Minnesota, where he's a member of the coaching staff for the Vikings for 5 seasons. Minnesota, more turkeys are hatched there than anywhere else in the USA.
Full little tidbits.
Yeah. Right.
Random ass tidbits, too.
Hey, you're going to learn more in this episode than you've ever learned in your life. I'm just, giving you a knowledge enema, whether you like it or not.
This town is enema.
Yeah. What was that from?
Batman.
Joker. Batman, yeah. Joker saying it.
The first time I heard that, I didn't know what enema was. So I was like, what?
I'm pretty sure I had to ask my parents, too. And they're like, it's when they, flush water up your butt. And you're like, oh, well, that's...
Well, I originally
Odd.
thought he was saying this town needs an enemy, but was like had like a little flair. Enema.
Oh,
I'm like,
gotcha.
oh, okay. And then after a while, I was like, oh, it doesn't really fit, because he doesn't have the accent the rest of the movie. So, and then I realized, oh, he's saying enema. What's an enema? And then there was.
Yeah, and then you learned, and you're like, oh, well, hope I don't have to have one of those.
No, hopefully not. I'm
Yeah.
sure one day it'll have to happen, but
No, I'm sure it will be. You know who's big into enemas? Gandhi. Anyways.
he was into a lot of things.
Yeah, no, apparently he was into giving underage girls enemas. This is an actual thing, too, so.
Oh man, I don't know. I just don't get it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't get the whole poop thing, or just because even like Mozart, he was all he had
Yeah.
a huge shit fetish, and I just don't.
I've heard it's a German thing. I don't know if that's true or not.
I guess maybe.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I
Yeah.
don't get it. I don't get
I
it.
think it's just one of
don't
those
even,
things. It's verboten and forbidden, therefore it's hot kind of thing.
I
don't know.
guess, but I mean, even with most like kinks, it might not be my thing, and I might even find it like, oh, you'll never even see me get anywhere close to that. But at least it's like I kind of,
Yeah, you're like, I
get
can
it.
get where people are coming from,
Yeah.
but yeah, when you're like,
I mean, even like people who suck on toes. Oh dear God, no.
ha,
I want mine sucked, and I don't want your foot anywhere near my face.
ha.
But like, I can also I get it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Whatever. That's your thing. That's your thing. But the moment excrement comes into play, I'm like,
Yeah.
just no.
They saw their dog rolling in poo when they were a real little kid, and they're like, huh, maybe there's something to that. Yeah. But yeah, I'm with you on that. Off topic. We are not fecal philiacs. There's another thing you learned. So, anyways, Pete is in Minnesota, hanging out with the turkeys. Also, more turkeys are hatched there than anywhere else in the USA. They never say anything about turkeys being slaughtered there. So I'm guessing they get exported. Anyways, 1990, and now he's off to the New York Jets, and he's going to be coaching their defense. And this time, he's like, hey, this seems like an opportunity where I might actually be able to get a head coaching job out of the deal. So I'm going to lay the groundwork for me being like, hey, psst, I want to be the head coach here when everything works through. Psst, psst, make me the head coach. That kind of stuff. Oh, yeah. Fun fact, the New Jersey Nets, or the New York Jets, actually play in New Jersey, not New York. Weird and dumb. Don't know why. Anyways.
That is.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think the New York Giants actually play in New Jersey as well.
I mean, they're right there next to each other.
I know. It's literally like a bridge drive away from each other, but still.
Right. But still, if you're going to be calling yourself the New York anything, you should be in New York.
Yeah. I guess New York's prestigious, and New Jersey just sounds like a hellhole. Well, that's what most people think of it. Although I think New Jersey is mostly farmland. Weird to think of.
When people think of New Jersey, they just think of the city,
Yeah, the Jersey Shore.
Yeah.
Jersey whitefish. You know what a Jersey whitefish is?
No.
Oh, it's the used condoms that wash up on the beach in Jersey.
Oh,
those are Jersey Shore whitefish. Yep. I learned that from Carroll on Aqua Teen Hunger Force. It's 1994, and 4 years of mediocrity later, and the Jets fire their head coach. And Pete Carrol is right there to be like, give me that job. And they're like, okie dokie. Pete gets to be the head coach at the age of 43, which is actually fairly young for a head coach overall. This job came exactly 20 years after he got his coaching job at the University of Pacific in Stockton. Stockton, the largest U.S. city to go bankrupt.
Oh, for real?
Yep. Mudtown went bankrupt. Who would have thought of that? Our mud and asparagus futures didn't work out. 1994, also the year the PlayStation was released in Japan. So this was the first time that Pete was going to be able to fully implement all his philosophies that he's been learning these last 20 years, all his college and whatnot. And he is super duper mega excited. So they have the first big team meeting where, all the coaching staffs there, all the players, all the higher ups and everything. And Pete lays down how they're going to do things the new way. This is, the sports psychology way. Fill up your pyramid, Super Saiyan, so on and so forth. We're going to be the nice coaches, not the jerks. And everybody in the staff room gets excited. They all start cheering like, yeah, this is cool. We're excited about this. Pete's looking around the room. He's like, yeah, I've got everybody here. And then he finally locks eyes with the 80-year-old owner sitting in the corner. And that man did not have a happy look on his face. He was very much one of those old school guys, just like that one coach he was with, who was just like, that's not how you do things. That's not how you do things at all. Apparently, Pete kind of cheesed him off because Pete and the owner would not talk the rest of the season.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he just got a good glowering, and Pete was like, well, oops. Pete does kind of say, in hindsight, he could have been a little less raw, excitable about it, but yeah, whatever. There's more on the owner, I think, than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, but also, he probably could give the owner a heads up. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say give the owner a hug, and I was like, ooh, that might not work either.
Right.
A man is supposed to never touch another man outside of a hearty handshake.
The question is how they do. I mean, if he did that and they end up being dead last, then obviously egg on his face, he's probably getting fired. But if he did all that and there was like massive improvement, then sure maybe they didn't win the whole thing, but like the previous season they did crappy, and then the seasons after that they did good.
Well, at the end of the season, they had won 6 games and lost 10. And that's definitely below average. You're not making the playoffs. You're not winning division or nothing like that. But also, I mean, I don't remember what they were the year before that, but they were even worse. So there's very slight improvement.
That's
But,
what I say, improvement.
they're very slight. But yeah, Pete basically took a step back. He's like, man, this team's going to take a lot of work, but I think I am up to it. The owners don't really like me, but I can work with that. We'll get all the staff on the same page, all the players on the same page. I think I can do this. Next day, he gets a phone call saying that he's fired.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at first, he's devastated, but then he remembers that it was going to be a lot of work to get them whipped into shape, and that owner did not like him. So he went from being devastated first to thinking about it and be like, probably for the best. And also, too, when the Jets hired Pete's replacement, they held a press conference, and the owner very smugly said, I'm 80 years old, and I don't have time to wait for us to win a Super Bowl, so I hired this coach that I like. He's old school. Over the next 2 seasons, the Jets would win 4 games and lose 28. The owner would die in 1999, not seeing the Super Bowl he wanted. He made his money
asshole.
he made his money as an oil baron, so he probably was comically evil. So
he was
yeah.
evil.
Yeah, he started by making like oil refineries in Jersey and dealing in oil.
He was all evil.
All I picture is just him, like one of those old school fat cats twirling his mustache. I'm gonna build this railroad right through old lady Puckinson's house.
How can you tell her? She's
Yeah,
wake up on the tracks.
Yeah, tied to it and everything.
I keep my mustache nice and gelled so I can twirl it when needed.
So Pete did get fired, but also shortly after that, he's inducted into the University of the Pacific Athletic Hall of Fame in Stockton, California. Stockton, the most famous celebrity to come from there is Chris Isaac. It sounds kind of familiar, but I don't know. He's like a musician / actor or something. I don't know. Chris Isaac, Stockton.
American singer, songwriter, and guitarist. Come on, let me see your face. If I see your face, I might know you. Nope, never seen him before in life.
Huh. He does kind of have a generic name though, Chris Isaac.
Yeah, I don't know. It sounds like I thought it was some kind of like, I don't know, caster. I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like he was one of those names that was like really big on America's Got Talent or something a few years ago that everybody
something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, I've heard this name before, but no, I've never seen this dude before ever.
Yeah, I didn't look up a picture, but didn't he just kind of look like generic white guy 104
holding guitar?
Yeah.
The very unique picture that's almost never seen, a white guy holding guitar.
Well, when you're posting dating profile kind of stuff, you either hold a guitar, hold a fish, or I guess hold a baby.
Yeah, the biggest picture on here is like it's black and white, kind of the light shining down, a huge contrast with the shadows real black and the whatever. Like this is my guitar. This is who I am.
And it's black and white, so I'm thoughtful and brooding.
It also looks old. So, I mean, the black and white is probably just because that's the kind of the film they had. But I do also... well, they had color back then. This wasn't like the 30s.
Yeah, color film goes back quite a ways. I have seen that, though, where they post, like, pictures of protests in, like, the 80s and 90s, but they make them all black and white, and so they look way older than they are. They're like, look how long the struggle's been going on. Feels a little dishonest, but...
But that being said, the 80s and 90s was a while ago.
Yeah. But not. They did have color TV and color photos back then, though. So.
Fair, yeah. It's still funny. It's like 80s and 90s. Just the other day. I mean,
yeah. So we are in 1995. Pete Carrol has been inducted into the University of the Pacific Athletic Hall of Fame. Also in that year, Pete gets a job with the San Francisco 49ers and gets to work under legendary coaches George Seifert and Bill Walsh. They would teach Pete many, many things. Among those, the importance of contingency planning. If you train and plan for every possible outcome, you need not fear results. And I'm pretty sure that's like literally from The Art of War by Sun Tzu. And
that sounds like a little more profound than probably what they...
Yeah. It's probably... Yeah, it's one of those things that's been around a while, I'm guessing.
Right.
Yeah, if you know yourself and know your enemy, you need not fear the results of 1,000 battles. Also, when he was with the San Francisco 49ers, he would meet NFL legend Jerry Rice, whom Pete said it was the most competitive man he had ever met in his life, and learned a lot about how to be competitive from Jerry. And also, just so you know, Jerry Rice was a wide receiver, widely considered probably the best player in his position. If not,
do you have to learn to become competitive? Is that something that's taught, or you just are? That was more of a personality trait versus like a learned skill.
Well, here's what Jerry's secret was to be competitive. Compete against yourself. Don't compete against other people. Don't look at somebody else and be like, am I better than him? Compete against yourself. Ask, was I better than I was yesterday? Don't ever compare yourself to somebody else because that's a whole different person. They do different things. They train different ways. Nope. You compete against yourself. Basically, it's one of those, hey, catch this ball in a cup and see if you can break that record in an hour. Never compete against other people. And if you're always competing against yourself, you can always just push yourself that extra hard. And you can identify what you need to train better or work harder at. So in a way, yeah, being competitive can be kind of a learned trait. So, don't compare yourself to Todd McFarlane if you want to be an author, or an artist. Compare yourself to
especially to be an author.
Yeah, his writing was kind of, I could go on a rant about that, but whatever. But there you go. If you want to learn how to be competitive, don't be competitive with other people. Be competitive with yourself. Somebody actually explained to me that's the fun thing about golf is because you're not really technically competing with other people. You can, but you're more of just trying to break your own record and do better by yourself. And I was like, that kind of makes sense, I guess. Yeah. So there you go.
I dig it.
Yeah. So did you learn something about being competitive?
No, I refuse.
You're just you're being difficult. See, and
difficult.
that way you will not evolve as a man and you'll be forever stuck as a non-competitive person.
It is very inspiring.
Yes. Oh, now you're just lying to me.
No, seriously. Overall, it is, like, hey.
No, actually, honestly, he's dead right when I read that. He's like, oh, yeah, he's 100% accurate on that. Don't be like, hey, am I doing better than Elon Musk is today? Because, that's comparing apples to oranges. You weren't born rich and stuff. Compare yourself to like, hey, am I a better person than I was yesterday? Can I run faster than I did yesterday? Am I a better player, person, father, lover than yesterday? So, yep, compete against yourself. And that way, too, when you finally do beat yourself, you can like yell at yourself in the mirror like, you suck, I beat your ass earlier. Yeah, and just completely just tear yourself down. And the next thing you know, you're like, yeah, they're punching the mirror and screaming at yourself. How'd you break your hand? Lost an argument with myself, punched a wall.
My self-fight's dirty.
Yep, so there's Jerry. There's Jerry Rice's secret to being competitive.
This is where the ending jingle goes. This is where the ending jingle goes. I don't know if we need one. I don't know if we'll get one. But if we do, then here is where it goes.